Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. There is a story that is trending right now that is very, very touchy and difficult to even fathom. It's a sad story, but I want to talk about not that particular story, but in general to so-called black women about situations that they find themselves in. Now, first, I'll reference the story, and for those of you who are interested in finding out more about the story, if I remember, I will leave a link in the description area. But it's about a young woman who is the mother of 5. She's a single mother of 5, and she did the unthinkable with her children in her vehicle on Facebook Live. She was very distraught because of something that had transpired in her life concerning a man. And she involved her children in this by doing what she did, the unthinkable. I don't want to get too much into that story because YouTube has a very sensitive thing that they have going on certain channels. Mine is one of them, where if you talk about certain things, it's just it's picked apart. But I want to talk to a general audience about some things, because I want to say this, and I'm not talking specifically to anyone, I'm speaking in general to so-called black women, that you have a greater responsibility of being careful about whom you involve yourself with. I've talked about this many times before, and many don't understand, some do. But regardless to whether or not you understand, someone will get this. The greater responsibility falls on you as the woman to be careful who you involve yourself with, especially since your body is the one that will have to carry a man's seed. Did you get that? Since you will have to be the one to carry that seed to life, then you have the greater responsibility, whether you want to accept that or not. Unfortunately, many like to play these naive games as if they don't know or realize what can happen if they open themselves up to a man. I first want to say this because sometimes people get thrown off track. Once you've lived a certain amount of time and you've seen things, you've experienced things, and you know things, it is at that point that you teach another what to do or what not to do. Now, there are songs that have been put out there over the years that will say things like experience is the best teacher. That can be true in some senses, but you have to use and say things in context. Because some will use that phrase or that statement as an excuse to go out and ruin their own lives. They'll say, well, the song says that experience is the best teacher, so let me go out here and experience this for myself. You don't always have to experience something in order to understand the consequences of something. You can look at another person's life and see what they encountered when they went down the wrong road. You don't have to say, well, I need to experience this for myself. Only a foolish person thinks that way, to think that they have to experience something for themselves in order to really understand how detrimental something can be to their lives. Imagine a person saying, you know what, I want to experience this high for myself, so I'm going to take or use this particular drug so that I can get that experience for myself. Even though I've seen what happened to this person or that person, you want that experience. So no, You don't have to always experience something first in order to understand how badly your life can be affected by that thing. And so, even with young women, you don't have to go down the wrong road first to follow many others who have already gone down those roads just to get that experience. Learn from others. Back to the story at hand, or should I say the topic at hand. Young women, you have a greater responsibility, so you need to be careful. Unfortunately, a lot of young women, and you don't even have to be young, even older women period, like to use excuses to validate their mistakes. They'll say, well, I didn't know, or I thought he was this, I thought he was that. He didn't tell me this, he didn't tell me that. I thought we were in love. He promised me this. A lot of women will use that as their excuse to justify their lack of accountability. Whether you're a man or a woman, you are accountable for your own actions. But if you are a woman and you allow yourself to get caught up in certain situations, and I'm talking about every woman, myself included, if you allow yourself to get caught up in certain situations, then you have to take responsibility for your choices or your lack of discernment or your lack of waiting, your lack of due diligence. In this day and time, it is required that you do or you have due diligence when entering into a relationship. Not just entering into a relationship, but opening yourself up to a man. Now, see, if people would take the desired route of how things are supposed to be before you just fling your legs open to any man, if you went the desired route and did as you are supposed to do, as our ancestors did, waiting until you were married, a lot of times you would not find yourself in the situations that you find yourself in. And sometimes it's not even just waiting until you're married, but it's even who you marry, who you choose to marry. Why did you marry this person? Did he make you promises? Was he good looking? Did he have the right money? The right looking body to you? Did anything else matter to you? Did you do any other checking to see if you were compatible? To see if he was even righteous? To determine if he even loved you? Or did you jump all the way in for frivolous, foolish reasons? See, women today are not asking themselves these questions. Some women, because you do have those who are doing what they are supposed to do. They're doing their due diligence and praying and seeking and investigating and doing that. But you have a lot of women who are thinking with the wrong part of their body. See, some men think with the wrong head, but you have women who think with their emotions and their feelings and their desires. You desire to be with a man sexually, so therefore you open yourself up to him and you say, I'll figure the rest out later. No, you better figure all of that mess out now before you open yourself up to this man. Too many women and girls allow themselves to be a sperm dump to anybody. He ain't got to prove nothing. You did no checking. You don't know anything about him. And you just allow yourself to just fling yourself wide open to anybody for that moment of pleasure. The Bible says that the joys of sin only last a season. Is that season worthwhile to you? They only last a season. Nobody today seems to want to think about consequences. As a woman, the greater responsibility falls on you. And those of you who don't know what I mean by that, I'm not saying that men are blameless or faultless in this. I'm just saying that a woman needs to think a little bit better before she flings herself open to some man because he said the right words in your ear. Don't be one of those silly women laden with sin that are led away captives because you allowed anybody to creep into your house and whisper sweet nothings in your ear. And then you find yourself in these impossible situations where you have been mentally and physically tormented because of your choices. Now, of course, I'm not talking about those who have been violated from someone they didn't know. I'm talking about those who knowingly enter into relationships without doing their due diligence, without prayer, without any type of understanding about who this person is. You just trust their words. You put faith in them. You let them trick your simple mind into giving up things that you should not give up to somebody who is not your husband. The greater responsibility falls on you. No longer can excuses be accepted, because choices that you make, women, they don't just affect you, especially if you're a woman who already has children. Your choices don't just affect you, they affect your children too. In some cases, they can affect your family members. Think about women who have gotten involved with ruthless men who not only took their lives, but maybe some of their other relatives, their mother, their father, siblings, because you couldn't contain yourself. You couldn't bear to be alone. So you took a risk, a big risk on a big question mark. You saw all kinds of signs, but loneliness dictated your actions to the point where you didn't care. You opened up your heart and your legs, and others had to pay the consequences for your ignorant choices. I'm sorry, family. I know this may seem a little bit hard, but look around. Look in the so-called Black community. Look who is heading households. Now, again, this is not to exonerate men, because I've even said this. Both of you know what it takes to make a baby. That man knows when he comes inside that woman that the possibility is there. So he is being irresponsible when he does that. And she is being doubly irresponsible if you know that you're not going to be with that man. He's not husband material, but yet you fling your legs open anyway and you allow him to come inside of you, and boom, you have a child. You don't make that mistake once, you do it twice, or 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 5 different guys. And then you expect the whole world around you to pick up the pieces. Well, there's a word for that. Ask our ancient ancestors, not our ancestors from decades ago, but ask our ancient ancestors what they think about that. See, that's the problem. We don't want to know what the ancestors think. You want to tell people today to mind their own business and get with the program. It is our business when you grow up and you do these things, and then you raise children to be hell on wheels, and the whole Black community has to deal with the consequences of how you have raised your offspring, growing up to be detriments to society. And yet you're telling people to mind their own business. It is our business. The Bible tells us to cry aloud and spare not, and lift up our voices like trumpets in Zion, and show our people their transgressions. And you daughters of Zion, you so-called Black women, you are without excuse. Many of you allow your daughters to be raised in a way that's worse than you. Like many others have said, that you are living vicariously through your daughters. You let them dress like tramps and whores. You promote it. You finance it and fund it. You encourage it because you are living vicariously through them. I actually heard a person say many, many years ago, someone that I know, we were talking about their daughter, how their daughter had met this young man and, was getting busy with him. And the mother had the nerve to say this. She said, I'm not thinking about what she's doing. I'm thinking about, I wish I was in there getting some too. This is what the mother said. These are people that I know. And when I thought about this, I said to myself, this is why. And see, I grew up in Detroit, y'all, so I know some of you grew up in other areas. LA, Chicago, New York, Memphis, Louisiana, down to Texas. So you grew up in various areas, but in Detroit, my experiences in Detroit have been a trip. Many of you know what I'm talking about. So many things to be concerned about. And one of those things is how some women loosely raise their daughters. And then when their lives fall apart, you sit there and have no way to mend their broken heart. You gave them no guidance. You gave them no structure. And you let them do whatever the hell they wanted to do. And now it's coming back on you. When they come to you, asking you to help pick up the pieces of their broken hearts. Now, I'm not saying that every situation is the same. I do realize that some young people, they go out and do whatever the hell they want to do, regardless to how you've trained them or taught them or raised them. I get that. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about those of you mothers who allow your children to do whatever they wanted to do. Let them go into whatever environment they wanted to go in. See, I'm drawing that separation right here. I'm talking about those who allowed it, encouraged it, promoted it. I'm not talking about those who raised their children right. And you know you raised them right, but they decided to go in left field. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to those of you who actually contribute to the downfall of your own children. And you got the nerve to boo-hoo and whine when they grow up to be detriments to society and to birth out more detriments to society. Black women, the greater responsibility falls on you, whether you like it or not. It is what it is. Make better choices before slinging your legs open to anybody who's ready to come inside. I'm out. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.